Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to speak to you about a divine truth that is more powerful than anything you could imagine. God said, "You are the one." I'm not talking about what people have said about you, not about what your circumstances are showing you right now. I am talking about what God has declared over your life. When the Creator of the universe speaks, His words are not empty. They are full of power, they are full of purpose, and they are full of potential. When God speaks, He is not making suggestions. He is releasing purpose into the atmosphere. His words are not casual, accidental, or emotional. They are intentional. Every syllable carries divine strategy. Every statement is pregnant with potential, and every word is wrapped in eternal truth. He does not speak to impress. He speaks to initiate. So when God said, "You are the one," He was not trying to flatter you. He was announcing a decision that was made before you were born. He doesn't call out your name because of where you are. He calls your name because of where you're going. You may not feel like the one. You may look around and see people who seem more qualified, more polished, more prepared. But God does not call the prepared. He prepares those He calls. He doesn't choose based on your resume. He chooses based on your destiny. There is an assignment on your life that cannot be duplicated, cannot be transferred, cannot be delayed forever. There is something in the earth that has been crying out for your voice, for your hands, for your obedience. When God says you are the one, it means you were not an afterthought. You were a solution in the mind of God before there was a problem in the world. You were not just born, you were sent. That means every season you've walked through, every trial you've faced, and every place you've been overlooked was part of your preparation. It was not punishment. It was process. God hides His greatest weapons until the appointed time. And when that time comes, He doesn't consult the crowd. He simply speaks. And His word is final. You are the one, because heaven saw something in you that earth has not yet recognized. God placed something in your spirit that cannot be taught in a classroom. You carry an anointing that cannot be earned through effort. It was given through grace. That is why you've never fit in. That is why average never satisfied you. That is why comfort couldn't hold you. Because when you are chosen, nothing else feels like home until you're walking in your purpose. Many people are waiting for affirmation from men, but when God affirms you, it supersedes every human opinion. When He said, "You are the one," He released authority, assignment, and alignment. And let me tell you something. When God speaks, even hell takes notice. Every demon that has fought you, every delay that has frustrated you, every rejection that has wounded you was a reaction to your calling. The enemy never attacks the unassigned. If you've been under pressure, it's because your presence is a threat. You've been mocked. And the reason the battle has been so intense is because your purpose is not ordinary. God's words are not merely sounds. They are seeds. And when He spoke your name, He planted destiny in the soil of time. That means even if people try to bury you, they don't realize they're helping you grow. You are the one not because of popularity, but because of prophecy. You are the one not because of applause, but because of assignment. You are the one because God has need of you in this generation. There is a territory with your name on it. There is a generation waiting on your yes. There is a kingdom, agenda tied to your obedience. So don't disqualify yourself because of your past. Don't dismiss the word because of your current condition. God does not lie. If He said it, He meant it. He saw the end from the beginning and still said, "You are the one." That means every weakness, every flaw, every insecurity was factored in. And He still chose you. He still trusted you. He still called you. And He is still speaking right now to remind you that His word has not expired. Heaven's endorsement is still active. The oil is still flowing. The purpose is still alive. So stop waiting for confirmation when you already have revelation. Stop looking for permission when you've already been given instruction. Move forward. Walk boldly. Speak courageously. Love freely. Serve faithfully. You are not waiting on God. He is waiting on you to believe what He already said. You are the one. Not because you feel ready, but because God says so. And when God says it, nothing in earth or hell can undo it. You don't find your identity in the reflection staring back at you. You don't discover who you are by scrolling through your social media profile or by adding up the opinions of others. True identity is not found in a mirror. It's revealed through a mandate. It's not shaped by culture. It's unlocked by the Creator. You were not made to find yourself. You were made to hear God, because only the one who formed you has the authority to define you. When God calls your name, He's not just speaking to the version of you you know. He's calling forth the version of you He created. There is a difference. People see who you've become through experience, but God sees who you were designed to be through destiny. That's why His word carries power. It doesn't just inform, it transforms. It reaches into the deep, hidden places of your being and wakes up the real you, the version that has been buried under fear, the version that has been quieted by rejection, the version that has been dismissed, overlooked, misunderstood. His word is a mirror to your spirit, not your flesh. This is why you can't afford to live your life based on what people call you, because if you listen to the wrong names long enough, you'll start answering to something that doesn't belong to you. People may call you broken, but God calls you healed. They may call you unqualified, but God calls you chosen. They may see your failures, but God speaks to your future. His declaration overrides every earthly label. That's why the enemy works overtime to drown out the voice of God in your life. Because he knows if you ever truly hear God call your name, you'll walk differently, think differently, and live with purpose. God didn't speak light into darkness for show. He spoke to separate what was hidden from what was revealed. And when He declares your identity, He's doing the same thing, separating your divine purpose from your human limitations. You may have been raised in a system that tried to suppress your uniqueness. You may have been told to shrink, to blend in, to play small. But when heaven speaks, it breaks off the limitations of earth. His declaration is not a suggestion, it's a summons. Think about Abram. He didn't become Abraham until God called him by a new name. Jacob didn't walk into his purpose until God said, "You are Israel." Simon was just a fisherman until Jesus said, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." Over and over again we see the pattern. Divine identity is not self-discovered, it is God-declared. And when God declares it, it shifts not only how you see yourself, but how heaven, earth, and hell respond to you. That's why you don't need validation from people when you have a revelation from God. You don't need the approval of the crowd when you've been affirmed by the Creator. When He speaks over you, He deposits identity. And identity brings stability. You no longer move based on emotions, you move based on assignment. You no longer live to be accepted, you live because you've been appointed. When God calls you by name, He's not reminding you of who you are. He's awakening who you've always been. Identity isn't built through effort. It's received through revelation. You can't earn it. You can't buy it. You can only hear it and believe it. And the moment you receive what God has spoken over you, the moment you accept His declaration, you step into alignment with purpose. This is why the enemy wants you to stay confused about who you are, because a believer without identity is a believer without authority. But the moment you recognize who you are in God, you become dangerous. You no longer entertain distractions. You no longer bow to pressure. You rise, you speak, you build, you lead, not because of ego, but because you know who sent you. So don't spend your life chasing reflections. Listen for the voice. Don't define yourself by experience. Define yourself by divine utterance. Because once God has declared it, your identity is sealed. And no mirror, no man, and no mistake can reverse what heaven has spoken. Being chosen by God is not a badge of perfection. It is a mantle of responsibility. When God calls you, He is not looking for flawless performance. He is looking for faithful stewardship. He is not impressed with credentials. He is moved by commitment. Being the one does not mean you have all the answers. It means you've been entrusted with an assignment that carries eternal significance. And with that trust comes weight. We often confuse readiness with worthiness. We think, if I'm not ready, then I must not be the right person. But God never required readiness. He requires surrender. Readiness is man's metric. Responsibility is heaven's. When God chose David, he was a shepherd boy, not a warrior. When he called Moses, Moses was hiding from his past, stuttering in fear. When he anointed Jeremiah, Jeremiah said, I am only a youth. Yet God called each of them, not because they were polished, but because they were positioned for obedience. They were available. That's the key. God is not looking for who has it all together. He is looking for who will say, yes, Lord. You don't have to be ready when you're chosen, because God already knows what he placed inside you. He equips you as you walk. He reveals strength in your weakness. He covers your inadequacy with his sufficiency. The pressure to be perfect was never from him. That's the weight of religion, not the freedom of relationship. God calls you based on what he sees in eternity, not what others see in time. Responsibility means you stop waiting for the right conditions and stop moving in the right direction. It means you understand that being chosen is not about you, it's about the lives connected to your obedience. You carry something that someone else needs. Your yes to God is someone else's breakthrough. Your obedience opens doors for generations. That's why the enemy wants to distract you with feelings of unworthiness. If he can convince you that you're not ready, he can delay your impact. But God is not waiting on you to feel ready. He's waiting on you to take responsibility for what he already declared over your life. And yes, it's heavy. Yes, it's uncomfortable. But that's because responsibility grows you. It stretches you beyond your current capacity. You won't always feel confident, but confidence is not your source. Calling is. You are not walking because you feel brave. You are walking because God said, go. That's why he told Joshua, be strong and courageous. Not because Joshua was fearless, but because he was chosen. And being chosen means it's not about your ability, it's about your availability. You may not feel prepared, but what you carry is divine. Heaven trusts you. Let that sink in. The God who holds the universe looked at you and said, you can carry this. He didn't ask for your resume. He gave you responsibility. He didn't check your background. He appointed your future. You may still be working through your past, but he has already seen your completion. He knows what he invested in you. That's why he called you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're his. So responsibility means you walk even when it's hard. You show up when it's inconvenient. You speak when it would be easier to stay silent. You lead when you'd rather hide. You forgive when holding a grudge feels justified. Being chosen means you carry the weight of the call, not the illusion of perfection. It means you lean on grace, not gifting. You depend on God, not performance. You keep showing up, not because you're the strongest, but because you're committed. And as you take responsibility, God takes care of readiness. He shapes you through the pressure. He develops you in the secret place. He builds your character in the background before revealing your influence in the spotlight. This is why process is not punishment. It is preparation. Every challenge, every test, every moment you feel inadequate is God training your hands for battle and your heart for leadership. So don't let the lie of unreadiness stop you from stepping into your assignment. God knew what he was doing when he called you. He's not intimidated by your lack. He's invested in your potential. Chosen doesn't mean you've arrived. It means you're willing to go where others won't. It means you take the weight, you take the risk, and you trust the one who called you to carry you through. You were not chosen just to sit in church and feel good about yourself. You were not anointed just to enjoy goosebumps in worship or to post spiritual quotes online. You were chosen because there's a need on earth that can only be met by what God placed inside of you. You were called because heaven had a problem and you were the solution. When God calls a person, he doesn't just elevate them, he assigns them. You are not chosen to be admired, you are chosen to be deployed. Every calling carries a kingdom assignment. God is not random with his decisions. When he said, "You are the one," he didn't do it to make you feel important. He did it to assign you to a divine task. He placed something in your spirit that answers a question this generation is asking. You were designed to fill a void, to bring light into darkness, to bring order where there is chaos. You weren't chosen to blend in, you were chosen to stand out, to represent heaven in a way that shifts atmospheres and impacts lives. You are not a volunteer in the kingdom, you are an ambassador. This is why your calling comes with weight, because it's not just about your personal blessing, it's about your kingdom responsibility. You are part of a divine strategy. There's a kingdom vision that requires your hands, your voice, your obedience. You carry an answer to a prayer someone else is praying, and that answer will never be fully released until you walk in what you are called to do. There are people waiting on your yes. Your assignment is not optional, it's essential. Jesus didn't call Peter to make him famous. He called him to fish for men. He didn't call Paul to write letters. He called him to establish the church. He didn't anoint Esther so she could wear a crown. He raised her up for such a time as this. Their callings were connected to a crisis. Their assignments were born out of a need. And so is yours. If you're still breathing, it means your assignment is still active. If God has not taken you home, then your work is not done. You can't just shout over the call. You've got to step into the assignment. You can't just dance in the anointing. You've got to deliver on the responsibility. Because when God chose you, He gave you more than a title. He gave you territory. There is a space in the kingdom that only your obedience can occupy. Your calling might look different from others. It might not come with a microphone or a spotlight, but if it's from God, it carries eternal weight. Raising that child, starting that business, writing that book, mentoring that teen, feeding that family, it all matters. That's kingdom work. That's assignment. The problem is we often want the call without the cross. We want the glory without the grind. But there's no such thing as a weightless calling. Every divine purpose comes with divine pressure, but it also comes with divine provision. God doesn't just call you, He equips you. He resources your assignment. He puts the right people around you. He opens the right doors. He makes the crooked places straight. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. This is why it's dangerous to compare your assignment to someone else's. What you're carrying may not look like what they're carrying, but it's just as vital. Don't downgrade your assignment because it's not celebrated in public. Heaven does not measure greatness by platform, it measures by obedience. God does not reward popularity, He rewards faithfulness. The greatest thing you can do with your calling is to steward it well. So ask yourself, what problem was I born to solve? What pain have I survived that someone else needs healing from? Where is God sending me? Not where I want to go, but where I'm assigned to go. Because until you understand your assignment, you'll waste your calling trying to impress instead of impact. But once you embrace your divine task, you'll walk differently. You'll live on mission. You'll pray with purpose. You'll give with strategy. You'll serve with fire. You'll understand that being chosen wasn't about being noticed. It was about being necessary. You're not here to take up space. You're here to take territory. Your calling is connected to a kingdom cause. Your purpose is tied to people. Your life is bigger than your comfort. It's part of God's campaign to restore, redeem, and rebuild the earth through His people. You're not just called, you're assigned. When God selects a person, He doesn't consult the opinions of men. He doesn't check your follow account. He doesn't poll the crowd, and He doesn't wait for public approval. Divine selection bypasses human expectations. It ignores societal standards, family traditions, and cultural rankings. God's decision is not up for debate. He chooses based on destiny, not display. He doesn't see as man sees. While man is busy judging the surface, God is reading the blueprint He wrote for you before you were ever born. People may see your flaws and count you out, but God sees your frame and calls you in. He doesn't need permission to anoint you. He doesn't require applause to appoint you. He sees what you carry in the spirit when others only see what you lack in the natural. This is why the most powerful people in Scripture were often the most overlooked. David wasn't even invited to the anointing ceremony. His father didn't think he qualified. But while the prophet looked over Jesse's sons, God whispered, I have rejected them. There is still one more. Because divine selection sees purpose, not polish. That's why you can't be discouraged when people don't recognize your value. They didn't design you, so they can't define you. When God chooses you, He does it based on your divine assignment, not your current appearance. You might not fit the mold, but you fit the mission. You might not have their credentials, but you have His covenant. God has always used the unlikely to do the undeniable. He chose Moses, a fugitive with a speech problem. He chose Rahab, a woman with a scandalous past. He chose Mary, a teenage girl in a town no one respected. Heaven's choices never require man's permission. And that's good news, because it means you don't have to compete for a seat when God has already prepared a place. You don't have to audition for a role that's already yours by inheritance. You don't have to strive for what you've already been selected for. When God says you are the one, it silences every other voice. Your selection is sealed in the sovereignty of God. You don't need to campaign. He's already crowned you with purpose. This is why you must stop measuring your calling by how people treat you. Favor doesn't always look like fame. In fact, divine favor often attracts opposition. People may reject you simply because they can sense what's on you. They may not know how to articulate it, but your presence provokes something spiritual. It reminds them of what they're ignoring in themselves. You weren't picked by man, so you don't need man to understand your journey. You're not living for validation. You're walking in vocation. And let's be honest, if your selection depended on man, many of us wouldn't be here. If people had their way, we'd still be in the background. But thank God that when He picks, He protects. When He appoints, He anoints. When He calls, He covers. There's no committee that can cancel what God has confirmed. There's no critic that can override what heaven has declared. You are not chosen for clout, you are chosen for kingdom. So walk boldly in your divine identity. Stop trying to explain your assignment to those who weren't present when God spoke your name. Stop shrinking to fit into rooms you were sent to shift. Your difference is not a disadvantage. It's your design. The fact that you don't fit in is proof that you were sent to stand out. And God delights in using the ones nobody else saw coming. He gets glory through the unexpected, through the underestimated, through the unqualified. That's how you know it's Him. You don't need to advertise what God has already announced. When the time is right, He will make room for your gift. He will position you for impact. He will surround you with people who recognize your value without needing your resume. So don't let rejection become your identity. Don't let invisibility make you think you're insignificant. Heaven saw you before anyone else did. And heaven said, you are the one. When God said, you are the one, it wasn't to inflate your ego. It was to ignite your purpose. You are not a trophy to be admired. You are a tool to be used. Heaven's declaration over your life is not about spotlight. It's about service. You are not called just to live comfortably. You were chosen because you carry the solution to a burden that is breaking the heart of a generation. There's a cry rising in the earth, and God answered it by sending you. You are not just a believer. You are a response. You are not just present. You are prophetic. Your very existence is heaven's reply to a problem in time. There is a generation crying out for direction, identity, healing, and hope. They are wandering, searching, bleeding internally from wounds they can't articulate. And while the world offers noise, God releases a voice. That voice is yours. You weren't selected to be silent. You were appointed to speak, to stand, to act. God has embedded in you a divine solution. What others see as your personality, God designed as your instrument. Your gift is not random. It is targeted. It is tailor-made to answer a question your generation doesn't even know how to ask out loud. You are heaven's strategy. You are not late. You are right on time. The enemy has tried to bury you in fear, insecurity, and distraction, not because you're weak, but because you're loaded. The battles you've survived were not proof of abandonment. They were confirmation of assignment. Hell doesn't fight the ordinary. It wages war against the essential. If the enemy came after you early, it's because you were dangerous even in seed form. Before you knew who you were, the kingdom of darkness already had you marked. But God preserved you because your voice carries weight. Your presence shifts atmospheres. Your obedience breaks cycles. You were sent not to fit in but to disrupt, and not with noise but with answers. You are the healing someone is desperate for. You are the leadership someone is praying for. You are the truth someone is searching for in a sea of confusion. When God looked at the groaning of a generation, he did not send a celebrity. He sent you. And he said, you are the one. This is why you can't afford to be distracted. You can't afford to be comfortable. You weren't born to coast. You were born to confront. You were born to speak life into dry places, to be light in dark spaces, to carry the culture of the kingdom into systems, streets, and sectors that have forgotten what God sounds like. You weren't chosen just to preach. You were chosen to represent. Every room you enter becomes a mission field. Every conversation becomes a kingdom opportunity. Every gift you carry is meant to unlock someone else's freedom. You must understand, this is bigger than you. It's not about your platform, your reputation, or your brand. It's about your generation. There's a cry that can only be answered through your obedience. That's why God has been refining you. That's why the process has been uncomfortable. You've been trained in private to release impact in public. And what he's placed inside of you isn't small. It's generational. It carries a legacy. It carries shift. You are not just living for today. You're shaping what tomorrow will become. This is why you can't doubt yourself. Not now, not when heaven has already stamped your life with divine purpose. You don't have time to second guess what God already confirmed. You don't need more affirmation, you need activation. You don't need more opinions, you need to walk in the original word God spoke over you. Because if you don't release what's inside of you, this generation will keep crying out for what you were born to carry. You are not here by accident. You were placed, planted, and positioned with intention. The world may be chaotic, but heaven is not confused. God's answer to the confusion is clarity, and you carry that clarity. God's answer to the pain is healing, and you carry that healing. God's answer to the identity crisis is truth, and you are called to speak that truth. You are not just one of many. You are the one for the space you've been assigned to. So don't shrink back. Don't disqualify yourself. Don't wait for someone else to do what only you were graced to fulfill. There's a generation waiting on you to rise. They don't need another trend. They need transformation. And that transformation is wrapped inside your obedience. That's why God said what he said. Not to boost your name, but to release his purpose. Because while the world cries for answers, God still whispers, you are the one. So now the question is not if God called you, it's how long will you delay your response? You see, when heaven speaks, it's not making suggestions, it's issuing assignments. When God said, you are the one, it wasn't a compliment, it was a commission. It wasn't just affirmation, it was alignment. He wasn't trying to impress you, he was positioning you. Because in the economy of the kingdom, identity is always connected to intention. God does not name what he has not prepared. He does not choose what he has not equipped. And he does not declare what he has not already finished in eternity. So don't wait for the stage. Start where you are. Don't wait for clarity. Move with conviction. Don't wait for the crowd. Go with the cloud. Because when God speaks, history shifts. When you obey, legacy is born. The world doesn't need another copy. It needs the original you. The version of you God authored before time began. The version of you creation has been groaning to see. Let them doubt you. Let them overlook you. Let them question how and why and who do you think you are? Because the one who called you never asked their permission. He just said, you are the one. And that word is enough. So rise up, not in pride, but in purpose. Walk boldly, not in your strength, but in his sending. Speak clearly, not from ego, but from eternity. Because when God said it, that settled it. You don't have to convince anyone. You just have to become what He already called. You are the one. Now act like it.